It's time to start the content journey, boys. I'm here. Hopefully the lighting is good. I turned off all the lights. I'm in my boys' room right now. They say that you're supposed to make content, build the personal brand. If I could be rich and not have to make content, I would, but unfortunately that's not the case. We have the Aiden Rosses, the Kai Sinats, the Alex Hermosis. So what I really wanted to go over in this video is how we went from 0 to 79K per month with our software company, and the two things that it taught me. And these are going to be more so, a note to self. And by the way, for the people that don't believe me, I totally get it. You could check Indie Hackers if you want. You can go to indiehackers.com, and we have Stripe verified revenue on their platform. No, 79K a month does not mean that I'm rich. I'll explain that later. But there's two things that I learned about running a software company. So being the CEO of a little software startup, a pretty decent operation. We just hit $1 million in revenue recently from inception. I work with my co-founder Aman, and there's two things that I learned. And I'm not gonna talk too much about the story right now, but maybe if you guys follow along, I'll talk about it little by little. But there's two things that I learned that was hugely beneficial, and mistakes I won't make again when it comes to software building. So the first one is something I like to call dependencies. So obviously it's kind of in the word itself, right? You don't want your product to be dependent on other products. So what happened in our case was we run, we're basically like an email service provider. Well, we are an email service provider for a very niche group of people, and we were built on top of a cloud provider from India. And this cloud provider long ago basically, told us, hey, you guys can send cold emails through our architecture, through our cloud. And we were like, sure, that's awesome. They had port 25 open for emails and stuff like that. That's how you're able to send emails, is through port 25. And after a while, so about 5 or 6 months in, I kind of saw and I was telling, my co-founder Aman, and I was like, it's kind of weird that our whole business is basically dependent on our users sending emails through them. Of course, we're like the front end, but in the back end, all of the webmail and the ports and the architecture is actually built on their business, right? And long story short, we were at $30,000 MRR, about 30K MRR, maybe a little bit over, and they shut us down. They were like, hey, we don't want you on the platform anymore, and they started slowly trickling off the people on our platform. And the reason why it was so critical is I I didn't have a job. I went all in on this, and as soon as I was starting to see traction, I was super excited about it. And then this hit us, and most importantly, Aman, my co-founder, he actually quit a really good software engineering job, and he was making well over a 6-figure salary to be an engineer, a software engineer, which is what he's passionate about. And as soon as that happened, he quit in July of 2023, and late 2023 is when our business basically was at risk of getting shut down. And we were down for a long time, and it was a trickling effect where it didn't affect everybody at once, but we saw this coming. And then at the end, it basically came to a point where we had to put ourselves in debt. Not only that, and this the reason why we did that is to get access to this port and another cloud provider, but contractually have an agreement where they can't really kick us off. So one thing to keep in mind, my suggestion, at least even for a note to myself, is that you don't want to have dependencies. And I hope this mic is working, but you don't want to have dependencies. You like my mic? A little, I put a little sticker on it from the, whatever. Anyways, yeah. So when you're building something, you kind of want to you want to realize like, hey, what is my software dependent on? You know, my boy JN, he runs a Twitter outreach tool. It's called Drippy, and shout out to JN, man. He's a awesome guy. And he built his software on top of Twitter, and Twitter's API, they were charging, you know, as soon as Elon Musk bought it, I think their price went up like 30 or 40 grand a month. It was something ridiculous. It was unsustainable for a lot of small software companies, basically to get access to this API, which was necessary to send Twitter, you know, outreach automated. Once this price hike happened, a bunch of software companies died. And his didn't, because he found a workaround. But even then, he still has this dependency on Twitter, where Twitter is really the platform that is you know, is functioning, is basically allowing his software company to function. When you have something like Intercom, for example, you know, software company Intercom for support, right, for a bunch of software companies to use, that's not really dependent on many things, right? The software itself is so dense and has so many people working on it that they're not dependent on a social media app or something like that. They're just dependent on people building products, which will never end. And they're dependent on the fact that these products will need support. But all of their software is built internally, in-house. So when you build on top of Instagram or Twitter, or you build, using a bunch of APIs, I think I read a tweet one time. It said like, it said something along the lines of connect a bunch of APIs and become a millionaire. And it's not that easy, but you could definitely get an MVP up and be in really good hands and have a decent software tool. I mean, the things I'm talking about are really for a long-term software company, right? So the first thing is dependencies. You want to make sure, and it's something that we definitely will make sure about. But dependencies is a huge thing, and it was a problem, and that stressed me the fuck out in end of 2023. And the second thing is distribution. So we were very lucky that we built a product that people needed. And I also want to preface this by saying that usually they say to validate a market before you build something. I 100% believe that, and we didn't do that. And what's weird about it is that we didn't do that, but the product, well, we tried to, and people actually seemed as if they didn't really want the product. Not enough, like it didn't really get that much traction when we were doing outreach. But then when we actually built it, a bunch of people liked it, right? So I realized there's actually a way to do market outreach or market validation outreach, which that's another thing. So just because you ask someone and they say, yeah, this would be a great tool, or you don't get any responses, it might be the way that you're asking. There's a lot of things that you could do in the way that you ask, and we can get into that. But the second thing, like I said, is distribution. We got lucky and we didn't validate the product, but we ended up building the correct thing, because I saw it as a huge problem, and Aman kind of built the whole thing out in a much more thorough way. And when we started doing outreach to people to sell it, it was actually, we started doubling month over month. I mean, the first month we hit 2K, then it was 4, then it was 8, then it was 16, then it was 30 plus. And recently, I mean, like I said, we were doing 79. I think last month we did 75,000 per month, that month in revenue. So it's doing, amazing. But the distribution matters a lot. If you're gonna build a product, and even it goes for the next product that I'm building, because the next product I'm building is going to be definitely something that I know will explode, but not because I'm a genius, but it's because that I know that distribution is a necessary part of any business, which is marketing, right? I don't really like that word, but distribution is a huge part of building a software company. So you hear about the growth operators, and they take a creator and they build the back end of an info product to take the cut of $100,000 a month info business. They take 10% plus a retainer to run the whole back end, put the closers in there, to write the copy, to engage the leads, to do the setting for the people, to basically to collect this money, and then also even dabble in the fulfillment side. They're legit running an operation. They're like, that's what a growth operator, right? So similarly with software, it's a little bit more difficult, but you have a lot of creators that have that have potential for this kind of thing, and it's a much higher barrier to entry. Growth operating is fairly easy to do, relative to, depending on your business experience. I mean, to an SMMA person, of course, it's going to be to an SMMA person, it's going to be very difficult to do growth operating, especially if they're new to SMMA. But it's not going to be difficult for someone else that's like higher level in business. Growth operating is not rocket science. And I'm not saying that because running a software company is hard. It's definitely way harder than I thought. It is hard. Growth operating is just logistically more, less complex than running a software company or many other businesses. Yeah, I'm yapping at this point, but distribution is something you definitely want to work on and make sure that you know how to do outreach and you have some sort of gauge on distribution and how to reach a ton of people, and you have some form of sales experience, or you're willing to learn about sales and distribution and marketing, whatever. Because it's really important. If you're not willing to do those things, then you're kind of in a stage where you're fucked. You know what I mean? You can't really build a product. I mean, the product definitely has to be good to grow, but you need distribution to really work, for that to even happen. You need to light a little fire, get a little, you want to take the little flame and just like ignite it, pour gasoline on it. And that comes with understanding distribution. So lastly, I want to conclude this by saying, at $79K per month, I'm very cash flow rich, but cash poor. As Alex Hormozi mentioned one time when he was running his gym businesses, where he had 6 gyms, but he didn't really see much money coming in for himself. Again, I'm not in the worst position ever. I live in Manhattan in New York City. I love where I live. I'm like 2 blocks from Central Park. I'm 2 blocks from Hudson River. I'm partly bragging, but at the same time, it's because I love New York City. But I mean, yeah. So dependencies, distribution. I'll see you guys later. And actually, before I dip out, let me know if you like this camera angle. I like this camera angle. And another thing is that you can apply to my newsletter below. It's bitbankclub.com. I bought the domain bitbank.club too. Bitbank, like bits bank, like software company money, bit money, pixel money, whatever. But sign up to my newsletter below. I think you'll really like the content in there, because I'm just documenting, running our company, what we're doing to improve, and things like to reduce churn and how we got more users and got to this point. Again, if you don't believe me and you think I'm grifting, you could just go on Indie Hackers. It's Stripe verified revenue. And if you go to bitbankclub.com, you can actually see the Stripe verified revenue as a screenshot. And I'll leave my socials and everything below. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed.